Alright, so you guys know I like to try weird things, but I will say that today's video on offlane ALC is not that weird. It's not that weird because 33 did it, so surely it can't be that bad, right? But today, I want to show you guys this crazy game I just played. I went 12-0 and 21. Now you might be thinking, oh, surely the enemy team griefed. Now, to an extent, they did. I will admit, if you look at the player net worth graph, the Bristleback's not doing too well, but my Necro did buy back 3 times this game. And I actually dominated my lane against 2 players who were actually trying their hardest. As yes, an Alchemist. And keep in mind, I have a tiny my lane. It's not some insane laner. It's not like I'm laning with Bane or Marcy or something along those lines. I'm not. I'm with a tiny. But yeah, nonetheless, let's get into this hero, talk about why it's actually a good offlaner and why you can carry your games from the offlane role. Also, I want to tell you guys that if you've been struggling with solo queue and you're looking to get to the next rank, I'm going to be able to help you. Like, literally, with the gameleap website, I'm going to give you guys guides that are going to make it unbelievably clear on what you need to do. So if you've been stuck in the solo queue grind, you don't know what to do, and you want to become absolutely broken, but like actually you want to become much better at Dota, and you want to take it more seriously, the gameleap website is going to help you do that. So click the link down below. I'm going to help you get to the next rank, and I'll see you there. Now, first thing I do want to cover, Alchemist, particularly good on Dire. I wouldn't pick it on Radiant. So this is a bit specific in that regard, but I just wouldn't pick Alchemist over almost ever on Radiant. While you can, you definitely can, it's just not as good. It's just not. The camp setup is way too optimal for Alchemist, so you gotta keep that in mind. Now in terms of rune fights, there's 2 things you can keep in mind. I have no idea what this bristle is doing, but there's 2 things you can keep in mind. If your team lacks Disable, and you're chasing a kill for First Blood, as you'll see here as I hit a lucky 2-man stun, but as you'll see, you can chase with your concoction, or you can skill acid. If you have something like a Marcy or a Winter Wyvern, you know, something with very heavy disable, you can take acid spray as it's a much higher DPS spell. Now in terms of my starting items, they're a little bit greedy, but you'll notice that the first thing I'm shipping out is actually a ton of regen. Of course, the gauntlet being a little bit excessive. I did get 2 kills literally at the rune. And once again, I know people are going to look at this and be like, this is the only reason you won the lane. It's like, obviously it helps, of course. It's not the only reason I won the lane. In fact, it's not even close to the only reason I won the lane. In terms of starting items, though, these items are a little bit greedy, and I would be very careful about buying them in pubs. I would say you're better off in a lot of lanes just buying a stick, set of tangos, and a quelling blade, which you can do instead of upgrading the full wand. You can still have 3 branches, just a little bit less stats. However, you're going to have a stick and a quelling blade as well as starting tangos, which is a lot more reliable. Now, if your lane is really bad, if it's a really hard lane to play, you're laning against something like Monkey King, it's much better from my experience to take Acid Spray. Because the thing about the offlane is if you have a really bad lane matchup, for instance, you're against a Dawnbreaker CM or a Monkey King Jakiro, and you have something like Concoction, you're never going to be able to man up. And while you can use it to kind of bully them a little, it's not good. Acid is actually the much better ability in that lane. Now, unfortunately, against Doom IO, I'm not really going to get pressure too much. So actually what I could do here is throw the Concoction and use that as a way to secure the range creep denies. So it's really practical in that way. It's a really nice spell just for that exact reason. And I really do like the starting stick on Alch, and really the main reason why is you have a lot of mana problems on this hero. It's a very mana intensive hero. You're gonna notice the first items I buy are, right, Tango, Salve, and then immediately Soul Ring. You desperately need the Soul Ring. But even here, like, you're gonna see I'm gonna charge a Concoction relatively often. I was solo lane for a bit, so I felt a little bit pressured. But you can use it just as a way to get denies and get CS, and you should do exactly that. It's exactly like playing something like a Dragonite offlane, right? And you might be like, it's not like playing Dragonite offlane speed. Dragonite has a ton of armor. It's literally better than Dragonite offlane. You have, like, better, okay, not that much better, but the stun is actually nearly just as good. It's higher damage than Dragonite stun by quite a bit if you charge it, which it's easy to charge in the lane. And then it's just a low cooldown stun. It's the same thing. It's not like you have armor or high armor as Dragonite early on. You have the same starting armor as Dragonite. So it's not like, people will think like, oh, you can't lane this because it's a bad laner. It's not a bad laner. Like, Alch in the offlane is just fine. It's not a bad laner. Look at my abilities. Do I have Gravel's Greed? No, and this is a key thing, right? With these 2 abilities, if you get pressured, and by the way, you don't always have to go these 2 abilities. It does depend on lane. What I'll say is basically, if you have a high kill potential lane, for instance with Tiny, we have a lot of kill potential. It's hard for us to chip them, but we could kill them from full. So I wanted to take advantage of that, or potentially take advantage of that. And so yeah, basically, I'm going to be going for the skill build, and that allows me to potentially pressure if needed. However, if your lane is like Giga Passive, honestly, I will even argue that in this game, I probably could have skilled it. For instance, it would have given me a ton of gold in the sequence under the tower here. But the Acid Spray will come into play in a second here. As you'll see, the 2-man stun onto the IO into the Doom. It's quite a large radius, honestly, and we're able to beat down the IO. Fortunately, he got clapped by the Hellbear Smasher, but supports just die. And that's the thing about the ALC. If you like, the big tip here is these supports. And by the way, you want to charge the concoction. It gives you movement speed. And then when you're throwing it at them, you put down the acid. Don't do it in the opposite order. It's way more optimal. Unless you're in melee range of the opponent, then you should acid spray first, because the damage of the concoction gets amped by the armor reduction of acid spray. It's a physical damage nuke, the concoction that is. So even there, I actually do it wrong. I should throw the concoction, then put down the acid, so learn from my mistake. But you can see here, I'm just gonna click the heck out of this IO. And most supports, if you have a +1 stun, die from about half HP or 2/3 HP and below, especially if they're a low armor hero. And yeah, you'll even see I get left alone for a period of time here, but it's really not a big deal. You're gonna max out the acid. Of course, you're gonna be 1-1-1 in your skill build. However, I did watch 33's replay, and he actually took 2 points concoction at level 3. He was laning with a Marcy, so he was like completely doubled down on actually just killing them, which is a bit unorthodox for Alchemist, but it's something you can do, and there's no reason you can't, right? You're just a normal hero if you decide to take your nukes. That is actually good at killing people. Like there's no other way for me to put it. Like, your hero's just good at killing people. It just is. And so it's really something to consider, but as you'll see here, with 3 points in the acid spray, I mean, the Doom can't man up to me at all. Like, even though this hero gets bonus armor from Devour, right? I believe he has 2 points in it, so he's getting a bonus 3 armor. It doesn't really matter because the acid spray is reducing 6 armor at this point, so he even stands in it for a bit here. He's just trying to play the wave, and people think you're weak. They think you're weak, but I'm a 6 armor hero hitting for 80 in acid, and yeah, he just dies. Obviously, you could be like, oh, this Doom sucks. It's like, no, I mean, I'm just having a good lane. Acid is a crazy ability, even as an offlaner. Like, your hero can pressure a lot of carries. And you might be like, oh, Doom's a weak laner. He's not a weak laner, right? And so I really just think there's a lot of prowess with this hero. Now, keep in mind, the next thing you want to do is generally get into the jungle. Do not stay in the lane, and there's a couple of reasons why. Okay, the only time you stay in the lane is if you, for some reason, can keep killing the safe laner. If that's the case, okay, great. You can keep kicking them out. That's, you know, really good stuff. But after I end up getting a couple kills here, right, things are really going my way. What I'm going to end up doing in a moment is actually TPing into my jungle. And obviously, if you're doing this on Radiant, you wouldn't necessarily want to TP jungle. It's not efficient. But if you're playing on Dire, which, as I said, you should be picking this on Dire, it's just so efficient. And the reason why, it's simple. And by the way, you can TP to this part of the map or to the jungle way before level 8. Like, obviously, I'm having like the best game possible. Like, let's keep it real. I'm having the god game. I'm 5-0 as an ALC. But either way, even if I'm level 6, I'm going to do the same thing. The jungling is really not much slower. I'd have 1 less point in acid. It's practically the same. And so you just want to drag the camps together. You always put acid in one of them, right? You're going to drag them over. So I'm going to quelling this, right? And the camps you're going to farm together are these two and then these two, right? You could farm these two together, but then you have this camp alone and this camp alone. So it's better to farm these two and then these two. And you want to rinse, repeat that over and over and over again. And that is how you get Giga farmed. As you're going to see, I'm going to acid just on the edge here, so it drags aggro of this camp, and then I'm going to run in between the two, evenly killing them, right? Keep that in mind. You want to evenly kill the camp if you're trying to be as efficient as possible. What do I mean by evenly kill the camp? You want to hit the biggest creep possible. Whatever's highest on HP, hit that. Let the acid do the rest of the work. Don't be stupid. Do not be stupid. All right, but yeah, you literally just, it's very simple. On Dire, you just drag the camps together, farm, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, like, it's fine. And the great part about it is if your support knows what they're doing, well, then they get a free lane, which can be really good, actually. It's quite a powerful concept. There's a lot of supports and support players that would love to get a free lane that can't. And of course, as you pick offlane ALC, there's going to be a period of time where you're not putting pressure on the map. But a lot of offlaners don't even put pressure on the map at this point of the game. A lot of offlaners would be farming. Yes, of course, in a bit of a more aggressive position in their lane, but it doesn't really matter because, of course, you're looking to hit a timing and then enable your team again on that timing. As you'll see, I'm going to end up going Blink after the Radiance, not into a BKB and then farming more. I'm going to look to get a bit active on that timing if enabled to. And yeah, we're just wiping through the jungle. And really what's so important about this is because I was so efficient this game, I get an 11-minute Radiance, which once again, you know, a bit of an exception. But I get an 11-minute radiance, and now, of course, if they try to fight, well, they can't because I have an 11-minute radiance. But don't overforce too hard, right? Do not overforce. I cannot stress this enough. Safe laner, off laner, whatever you are, as ALC, mid laner, it doesn't matter. Do not overforce, right? Don't overforce. Even when you have the radiance, it's totally fine to slow down the pace of the game, right? Take a break, take a chill pill, and then go back into your jungle. For instance, my team, you know, we take a bit of a weird fight here. I honestly thought we were going to die for sure. My Necro lived for so long there, which is kind of crazy. But we end up cleaning up a little bit of a fight. And this is the power of the ALC on the Radiance timing, right? I get hooked here, but I have a wand. I have my Soul Ring. My ultimate comes back up. You can just see how powerful my hero is, especially in the Acid. I mean, especially something like Acid with Weaver Bugs. I don't necessarily know if that comes into play here. It doesn't. But just Acid against something like Pudge, it's brutal. It's brutal, right? His armor is 1. This guy's physical resistance is 6%, right? 6%. That's so low, right? Because you have to keep in mind, it's usually 32. That's crazy. Armor reduction is such a powerful mechanic, especially early on into the game against these low armor heroes. And ALC just abuses that. So this game ended up being slightly more slow paced. Basically, the enemy team was just kind of dodging, and that's fine. Like, you don't need to force the issue. You really don't. Basically, how you should look at it, a lot of people kind of forget to look at it this way. Every single time you get an item on ALC, it makes you farm faster. So if you were farming before, you can keep farming. Now, of course, in Dota, there's timings, but basically what I'm saying is every item you get makes you get the next item faster, right? Of course, Radiance being the major one. But the point is, don't slow down. You don't have to force the issue. It's fine to farm 5 items and then fight. Because the reality is, if you get to just AFK farm 4 or 5 items, which, by the way, in unranked, or even in ranked or low ranked games, you're going to be able to do most games if you're good, right? If you know what you're doing, then you're just going to be able to free farm. But you can see here, obviously I wanted to get aggressive. We have this really nice deep ward. I kind of mess up here. I have my Blink Dagger ready to go. But unfortunately, I didn't click on him. I was stupid. And so I didn't know he had BKB, because you're going to see I get really greedy. I acid and then try to throw the concoction, which if you're trying to solo kill someone, which is kind of what I was trying to do here, he's pretty tanky. You want to do what I do, which is acid spray, then concoction, and, you know, get as much time on the concoction as possible. But, you know, joke's on me, this guy's a BKB. So, I mean, I guess I ended up popping it, but either way, at the end of the day, wasn't great. Bit of a mess up, but you want to play for the wards, right? And you can see my gameplay makes a lot of sense. It's not random, it's very logical. I hit my BKB, I push up, right? Now I look for a free engagement on this ward. I give away that there's a ward on this hill. So what am I gonna do when I feel like they have too much information on me, or they're gonna be able to read my play? I'm gonna be okay with just backing up and farming the map. And I look at the map when I do this, right? This is not a random decision. This is not something I would do every game, but I'm looking at the map right now. My team is not fighting. Okay, my supports get picked off. Those are my 2 supports. They end up dying. You know, it is what it is. Like, it happens. But my Necro's farming bottom. My Bloodseeker's farming triangle in mid lane, which is ton of, you know, plenty of farm for him. I'm happy to farm the woods. After I farm the woods are dead though, right? And so you're gonna see how the map kind of progresses, and it's a very, if you get good and you get to the, you know, point where you're just farming so quick because you have all these items, you're gonna have all this net worth, right? And you're gonna farm the jungle so fast that there's gonna be literally no camps. On top of that, I was afraid they were top here, so the natural rotation for me is to mid, right? I don't want to be top. I already farmed a lot of the camps, and it's dangerous, so I'm gonna make a very natural transition to the top side of the map. Unfortunately, Doom once again got off his BKB. He clearly had a ward, so he blinked on my Bloodseeker, but you can see the natural transition, and it actually enables my guy to get away. I have no idea what in the world this relocate was, but we end up taking out the Pudge there. And yeah, this is kind of going to be like, it's really actually a very important concept I want you guys to understand, which is kind of this idea of like clearing out the map and then rotating across. It's actually a very advanced concept that I've been learning, that pros actually do this intentionally. Players do this intentionally, where they'll clear a portion of the map and then basically they'll kind of race to the other side to essentially put pressure, because they've already farmed everything they can, and so if they can get to the other side of the map and take that farm as well, or kick them away from that farm, then you're giga winning the farm battle, right? And so when you have a hero like ALC, of course, you can do that very effectively very early on into the game. But yeah, I mean, really guys, the main timing on your hero that makes you like a complete menace is the Assault Cuirass. It really, really is. Because you kind of lack attack speed before that. You just don't have an attack speed item. I went Treads. A lot of people go Phase Boots because of the lack of armor early on this hero, and your ability just to kind of chase. On top of that, the Phase Boots work incredibly well with the Concoction, because I think I mentioned this previously, but it gives you 20% movement speed when you're charging, which is insane, and it's really good with the phase boots. They work well together. You can just zoom in on your movement speed, so it really does work well. That's a nice pairing of synergies, so you can keep the phase boots in mind, especially if the enemy team is high in physical damage. But either way, pretty simple fight here. All I wanted to do was stun the IO to make sure he couldn't reload the Pudge out. I knew that the Pudge had no defensive item, he couldn't kite out. So basically I made the determination that if I stun IO, Alch will be stunned by Tiny, and then, you know, we can go from there. So it's really good target priority, I think, here. I blink in, I throw the concoction at IO, which prevents any potential reload. And yeah, the fight is just extremely, extremely easy. And yeah, I mean, this game is done at this point. I'm gonna basically end the video here. I just want to kind of give you guys some inspiration, all you offlane players who think you can't play greedy, who, you know, you can't play these heroes. And I know people are gonna think, oh, Speed, you're griefing my pub, blah, 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 blah. Guys, I'm teaching you a different way to play Dota. Okay, I'm teaching you, you might be like, oh, but you need a winning safe lane to do this. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you win your lane, which you can, if you follow good habits, which I'm teaching you about, and you know, there's still a lot of things you got to learn. Like, for instance, my creep aggro is really good. I side pulled in the lane, right? Things like this. Obviously, there's a lot more layers than what I can teach in one 12-minute video. I can't give you everything. But basically, like, when you hit your timings, you can snowball as an offlaner, right? Like, a lot of offlaners play incredibly greedy. Think about 33, guys. He's on the best team in the world right now. I would argue Tundra is one of the best, right? The guy is so greedy. Not every game, but in most games. And so if you want to tell me you can't farm as an offlaner, you can't play Alch offlane, you're just, you're just in the past. And I'm not going to say, oh, this is the greatest thing that's ever touched the face of Dota, even though the title might say that, right? That's not the case, right? But the heroes are good, especially if you have, like, for instance, when you're playing Alch, try to play it with a kill support in lane, because your hero kills people from full with a +1 stun. Tiny obviously being a decent example of that, Marcy probably being the best, which is what Tundra was picking. It's quite an OP combo. It's so stupid. How dominant Alch Marcy is as a lane, and then you have this really nice scaling Alch. And of course, in some comps, you can even pick it. And if your game isn't that good, you can still just give an Ags to your teammates, or you can play a utility. You can literally just buy like Ags into like Wraith Pact Pipe. Why not? Right? Like, just buy a Wraith Pact. Of course, you're playing Alch. Of course, you could just buy a Wraith Pact, you know? And it's completely viable. You can just have a really, really early Wraith Pact for your team. You can unironically walk mid to a mid-team fight with a 10-minute Wraith Pact. Earlier, frankly, you can get a 9-minute Wraith Pact in some games, and it has a good laning build-up. So I just think there's a lot of potential with this hero. I think there's honestly a lot of flexibility. Even the concoction is a really cool ability if you're playing. For instance, I think Alch offlane with Bristle safe lane is one of the coolest concepts in my head, because if you want to play Alch as a utility offlaner and give an Axe. And the reason why is you can give this guy an Axe so he can go Vanguard, Hood, Tread, Sanchinyasha, or like BKB. And then from there, if he gets Vesseled, which often he will, you can dispel it with Berserk Potion. And then you give this Bristle 50 attack speed, 30 movement speed, and 40 HP regen for 10 seconds, which is insanely good on Bristleback. Like, this hero lacks attack speed. It hits like a truck, but lacks attack speed. You give him that, you dispel him. It's just such a, I don't know. I think there's so much potential in that combo. That combo of heroes is, I really believe there's a lot of potential there. A lot of potential. Like these minus armor strats, I really do believe that there's something to be said about minus armor strats in this meta. I think there's potential, especially with how good Vlad's is right now, and drums. I think there's potential here. But all right, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you were inspired. I just thought this was a cool game. It's a concept that I watched 33 do. I wanted to try it. I literally watched his replays before this, and I'm like, I'm gonna give it a shot. All of a sudden I go 12-0. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I kind of share this with everyone else. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.